Are you craving a trip on Space Mountain? Well, we've got the next best thing. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and today on the show, my friend and experienced designer Sam Carter joins me to celebrate the upcoming 65th anniversary of the original Disney park, Disneyland. Unfortunately, this year, Disneyland Park will not be open to the public on its anniversary due to the COVID-19 pandemic, so we're taking a look back at the 10th anniversary and 25th anniversary TV specials that celebrated this magical place. Both of these anniversary specials can be found easily on YouTube, so after you hear what we have to say about them, check them out for yourself, and don't let this 65th anniversary pass by without celebrating. All of that's coming your way right after this. If you've been enjoying Disney Coast to Coast, there are some folks who you should know about that make this show possible. Skylar, Joshua, Jeanette, Leah, Faith, Bonnie, Erin, Jeffrey, Anna, Gerardo, Rio, Philip, James, Diego, and Monet all help to ensure that I can continue to produce new, free episodes of Disney Coast to Coast for everyone's enjoyment. But it can't stop with them. In order to ensure more free episodes, perhaps you can join the DCTC community to make that possible. Over at patreon.com/DisneyCTC, you can learn how to gain bonuses like early episode releases, live stream Q&As, and more while supporting the show at the same time. If you haven't yet headed over to Patreon, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to do so and consider supporting the future of Disney Coast to Coast if possible. Once again, the site is patreon.com/DisneyCTC. That's patreon.com/DIZNEYCTC.
Grab the confetti and celebrate a Disney anniversary.
Hello, Sir Sam, and welcome back to Disney Coast to Coast. Thanks for coming back and having some fun with me today.
Thank you. I couldn't be more happy to talk about this subject.
Yeah, no, of course, Disneyland's 65th anniversary is coming up. And for a while there, we thought, it was going to be the grandest reason of all to celebrate. Disneyland Park was reopening on July 17th of 2020 to, after coronavirus, well, not after, but, after closing for a while. And, but of course, we're recording this just soon after they announced that is indeed not happening. It has been postponed for safety reasons. Makes total sense. But, right. that would have been such a nice anniversary.
It's sad to think about the park closed on its 65th. Luckily, it's not the 50th, something like that, right? But
I honestly can't believe it's the 65th because the 60th feels like yesterday.
It does. I feel the same way about the 50th. And
yeah.
As a kid, we'll get to it eventually, but as a kid watching the 30th special, it's just nuts. It's a big deal for us nerds.
It's wild. So since we cannot celebrate in the parks properly this year, we are going to take a look back, which I love doing, at some of the older anniversary TV specials that, they had to celebrate Disneyland anniversaries. And we're going to start with Disneyland's 10th anniversary. And this was a special episode of The Wonderful World of, I was going to say The Wonderful World of Disney. It was actually back then The Wonderful World of Color. And this aired on January 3rd, 1965. So like today, the tradition of celebrating anniversaries for long periods of time, because this is like a good 6 months before the actual anniversary, but that continues.
Well, it's a commercial, today. Right? These are all commercials.
Absolutely.
Walt's a smart man.
Yeah.
And that's what's kind of cool about this one, since it is a Wonderful World of Color. I mean, and as far as all the other anniversary specials go, this is the only one that starts out, and now your host, Walt Disney.
Yeah, so this one is, this was the only big anniversary. Well, of course, the first year, 1 year anniversary, the 5th year is pretty big, but the 10th anniversary, this was the last.
A lot happened that decade.
Totally.
A lot. And he had a chance to kind of plug all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And this was the last one he really got to celebrate, that was a big, big anniversary. So it was awesome to see Walt as part of it. But one of the things that surprised me with this is I had seen so many of these clips before as far as behind the scenes of these attractions. Didn't realize it was from this special. Did you know this?
No, I think it clicked when I finally, there must have been like a DVD I got, like a tin box set years ago when I'm like, oh, I kind of put two and two together. But yeah, it's pretty neat because some famous clips of Walt walking around and talking to different Imagineers, and with the first ambassador, the first, what do they call them? He had a different name for them.
Listen, Walt had a different name for everything in this special.
Well, even the Haunted Mansion, it's the Haunted Mansion, Walt.
Yeah, what do you say? Our house of the Haunted Mansion.
The weird.
Yeah. It was actually fascinating to watch Walt because, not only was he older, so, I don't think he had memory issues toward the end of his life, but
he was definitely like a grandpa. You know what I mean? He was definitely
like a grandpa, but also I just felt like he had so much going on within the company. It was that signal of, Walt's hands aren't nearly as involved as in everything as they used to be, because they couldn't be. It was
Mary
impossible.
Poppins going on. You have attractions being built. I think that's why he leaned on all those Imagineers.
Totally.
What I really thought was kind of funny too is we always hear about like, oh, it's John Hinch and it's so and so. I like these like, oh, here's Johnny Hinch. You're like, it's just so cool to hear how casual he was with them,
Totally. And them with him, hey, Walt, like sort of thing. Yeah. That was kind of fun. You mentioned Julie Reams was the first ambassador that you mentioned. And,
She might have been an animatronic. I'm not sure.
It's true. She was very like the Disney way, shall we say. Yes. And it was just funny because of some of the out of touch comments being made. Like the,
now talk about that. There's a lot to unpack with that, right?
Now look,
watching it with a set of 20/20 eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's things that you probably wouldn't say today, and it's not necessarily that he was wrong for saying stuff like that, but it's like, whoa, probably wouldn't say things like some of those things.
There definitely would have been a publicist even speaking to the boss being like, yeah, don't say that, Walt. Not a good look right now. So
there's a lot of comments about how pretty she was.
But one of the first things we see behind the scenes is It's a Small World. We see the facade being worked on by Mary Blair. And this was interesting because this attraction had already been created for the World's Fair, but when it was being moved to Disneyland, they were building that grand facade that we know and love today.
You notice that it wasn't flat. There was a lot of 3D elements to it.
Yeah.
Like cylinders and tubes and stuff. It wasn't like the flat Mary Blair look. So I'm wondering when that switched over. But just to see Mary in her element, what I really liked about that scene though is how they show that, like, oh, the train's going to go by and then it's going to change colors. And what's really neat is, they actually did that. I'd say maybe 10 years ago, they put a really cool lighting package that has the whole kind of spectrum of colors and it actually goes with the train. So I love that wasn't just pulled out of thin air. That's the idea that Walt had. And then decades later, they did it.
And I love the fact that they were even speaking in this little clip that like they were purposefully making this, a monochromatic white thing so that it could specifically be lit differently at nighttime, which I found interesting. I was like, yeah, I never really thought about it, but I guess this probably was the first thing that they thought to do that. There was
the whole, it was really treated like, because there was a whole segment of this special that talked about Disneyland at nighttime. And it really seems like it was a real strategic implementation of lights at Disneyland at nighttime. It seemed like, hey, let's start making this the date place at night because they probably saw everyone leaving at dusk. And I have a feeling that's when they put all those lights on Main Street, and the trim of the roofs and stuff. And they kind of maybe started just really thinking about what does Disneyland look like at nighttime? And that's probably one of the first times, I bet.
Well, you got to remember also when Disneyland originally opened, perhaps that first decade, like they weren't open as late as they are these days. So there's a good, especially in the summer when they were open the most days of the week, it gets dark very late. So if they weren't open late into the night, like lighting at night really wasn't a concern. And at some point, late nights became a normal thing at Disneyland and, 7 days a week became a normal thing. So yeah, it makes sense that it would evolve that way. It was interesting for sure. And I love the fact that they kind of, even though they were bringing an attraction from the World's Fair back to Disneyland, they were still trying to plus it in a way with the facade of the attraction. So,
they definitely made it feel more long-term of like a permanent attraction.
Yeah, for sure. And then we go over to John Hench, or Johnny Hench, as Walt liked to call him. Now, he was working on the Plaza Inn. I have a confession. I don't think I've ever been in the Plaza Inn.
It's insane. Are you kidding me right now?
Because
Stop the podcast. Stop this.
Well, is it only character meals?
No. Oh my gosh. Okay. First of all, my backstory is ever since I started working there in 1995. Oh, well, I worked at Disneyland Entertainment. But even before then, it was a family tradition to have a Christmas dinner around the holidays at Plaza Inn.
Oh, nice.
And I usually don't eat there during out the rest of the year, but we get this like a group of 10 people or so every Christmas, and we go eat at the Plaza Inn. And it's what's awesome about that. I'm telling you, the fried chicken, the mashed potatoes, the green beans, it's really good. So no, the character stuff's only in the morning.
Okay.
From what I understand.
Well, then I need to remedy that for sure the next time I'm there.
It's so good. I'll go with you, please.
Okay, yeah, let's for sure do
my
that.
mouth's watering right now.
It's funny because when I go to Walt Disney World with my family, our thing used to be breakfast at Tony's. Back when they used to serve breakfast, they had this amazing.
Tony's isn't too good these days. That's
what I hear, but last I checked, they weren't serving breakfast, but it was a real bummer because for a while there, they had this thing called the breakfast calzone. And it was a calzone full of all breakfast goodies, eggs and cheese and bacon and sausage. And it was like
good heavy breakfast to start your day out.
Oh, it was fantastic. And it bummed us out when we found out, like we started going back and like that calzone wasn't available. And then like the next time the breakfast wasn't even available. So we're like, oh, that's a bummer. But yeah, it's funny how we all have those traditions. So Plaza Inn will need to become a tradition for me at some point.
It's so good. What's really neat is seeing the model of it because it's pretty obviously spot on. And if you're familiar with the restaurant too, it looks just like it. And I would say maybe about 15 years ago, it got a pretty extensive remodeling, right? They kind of changed the style in there. Kim Irvine was handling that one, and it made it better, but it still feels like that same model. So even though it's an old restaurant, a lot of TLC's been put into it, and it looks still brand new inside. It's great.
That's cool. Is it big? How big is it? Because I always just walk past it.
Huge, but there's a lot of outside seating, which helps.
Yeah, that's what I'm very familiar with is the outside seating, obviously.
Right, and if you kind of get a good spot, you could kind of like, if you're in one of those patio areas, it's a good spot to see the parade go by, and if you're kind of having a long meal, you could actually watch the fireworks from where you're sitting.
Nice.
Yeah, it's good. Cool. But they also, besides John Hinch, it goes into the whole Mark Davis and Molly Crump for the Haunted Mansion thing, and just to think about the stuff that's like in the works, and it keeps getting more and more because Plaza Inn, it's a restaurant, but then you're like, holy crap, they're making Pirates of the Caribbean right now, they're making Haunted Mansion right now. Like these are major parts of Disneyland, and they're just now we're seeing it come to life.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'd be curious to know if this was like the introduction of those to the public. I have a feeling that it wasn't, because if it were, I feel like it wasn't a big enough deal made of it. So I feel like he's probably mentioned it in previous episodes.
I'm sure there was more. I just don't know if this was before or after. But they each probably got their own special, I would think, because
because they're huge. But yeah, it was great to see Mark Davis and Raleigh Crump in the Element talking about Haunted Mansion and the Museum of the Weird and all that stuff. And then,
but when he starts talking about pirates, it was really cool. That you have Claude Coates and Blaine doing like the sculpts. So cool because he was like the main sculptor of everything, even like Hall of Presidents.
Yeah. So the thing that was interesting to me about Pirates of the Caribbean was they never once referred to it as Pirates of the Caribbean. Walt only called it the Blue Bayou Lagoon.
Oh, and just the restaurant area, talking about that part. Like
as if that was the name of the attraction at one point. Right. And then they definitely use the word pirate, but nobody ever says Pirates of the Caribbean. And I found that very interesting. And I was wondering if that was... Yeah, I was wondering if that was like one of Walt's little just errors, or if it was legitimately not named
Maybe
that.
Maybe they didn't know what it was called yet.
Yeah.
Well, they might have been a little bit torn because it is New Orleans, and I mean, it is on the cusp of the Caribbean. But what I thought the coolest part about Walt talking about pirates, and I think it was with Claude Coates, and he was talking with the hostess that was there. What was her name again?
Julie.
Yeah. When he's asking Julie, he's like, oh, so we got into this whole pirate world. How do we get out of here? And then how do we get in it? And she's like, waterfall? Well, then we go up a waterfall. Yeah. But Walt says this line that is so cool. Anything's possible at Disneyland.
Yeah.
It's just, I love that line.
There was a lot of moments that I'm like, oh, these are the pull quotes they use a lot. These are the clips they use a lot.
They're good ones.
Yeah. The classic Walt stuff. So
yeah, it's just so great. And it's nice how I think that kind of stuff still resonates. I think when they look at new projects that are going on, anything's possible here. It's pretty cool.
So let's move on to, it was great to see all that upcoming sneak peek sort of thing.
Good WDI stuff.
Yeah.
Good backstage stuff like that.
But then we've got to, of course, have a celebration. And you can't have a
Classic.
celebration without a big show at Disneyland. So we end up at Sleeping Beauty Castle, in front of Sleeping Beauty Castle. Tons of characters involved. We've got the Toyland drummers that we see at the Christmas parade. And
You know what's cool about that?
What?
Those toy soldiers. When we look at them now, it's 100%. That's Christmas parade.
Yeah.
Right. And if you look at them, they're the same costumes. Like those haven't evolved.
Yeah.
I hope they never do. You look at the Christmas parade, and after year, those costumes, every once in a while, they feel the need to evolve them.
Mm-hmm.
And like they've done it with the reindeers, they've done it with, the snowmen and gingerbread. I hope they never touch these toy soldiers, because they are the Babes in Toyland soldiers. But what's cool is this is July 17th.
Yeah.
This isn't Christmas. This is just a new movie he's plugging. This is Babes in Toyland. And it's funny how decades later, nope, that's just a Christmas thing now.
Well, it's interesting because, they kind of promote it as a Christmas movie. And I did an episode of the podcast during the Christmas season this past year. And we talked about all of the Christmas offerings on Disney Plus. And one of the things we talked about was Babes in Toyland, which I then
Is it
watched.
Christmassy?
It's not at all. And I shouldn't
That's
say
what
it
I
all.
thought.
There's a very small Christmassy segment, but I sat and watched that movie and did not like it. But I love those toy soldiers.
That
I
villain's
love
such a creeper.
it's not great. It's not a great movie. So I love those soldiers. I love them in the Christmas parade. I do want to see a new Christmas parade, but I agree, if those soldiers weren't part of the new parade,
They have
I
to
would
be
be
in it.
bummed.
They have to be.
You know,
One of my, I do a lot of design type of work, and I've always been thinking of what would that new Christmas parade look like, right? Like, obviously Disneyland needs it. It's been, 25 years?
I don't even know how long it's been,
25?
but it needs it for
The
sure.
one they're doing now started in 95.
Wow.
So it's going a long time. I mean, yeah, some floats have come and go, but it's the same music. It's the same concept, right? I kind of stopped thinking about what a new Christmas parade looks like at Disneyland and started thinking about what would a Christmas parade look like at DCA. I just think that'd be really cool. Brian Setzer, I
don't know. I don't love parades in DCA. There's something about DCA. It doesn't feel like a parade park to me.
Interesting.
Yeah, and Main Street
That could be a whole
USA.
other show right there.
What was that?
That could be a whole other show right there.
We'll do it.
At least now that it goes down Hollywood Boulevard, that helps. But yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially during Christmas time, Main Street USA is so classic Christmas. For me,
Right,
I'm
tradition.
all about, I want to see a Mickey's Christmas Carol Christmas parade, which I
How
know
about
is,
Mickey's Christmas Carol show in the Hyperion?
let's do it. I'm all for it.
That's what I want.
It's so good. Totally random. But in any case, so we got those toy soldiers or the drummers.
Right.
Okay, I want to know if you know what these are. The giant dogs and the witches.
There's some weird characters that are there
that I've
I was
never
gonna ask
seen.
you the same thing. I have no idea what that witch is from. It actually looks Looney Tunes-ish.
Yeah, it looks like Hanna-Barbera or Looney Tunes. It does not look Disney.
Brunhilde. I think it's, and there's a camel and there's a guy in a turban. Have you seen those?
I didn't see that, but I noticed the two giant dogs. Not like Pluto, giant
I didn't
four-legged.
notice the dogs.
You didn't
But
see them?
what's-
Oh my gosh.
I just know there's a handful of characters. I have no idea where they're from, and I have to assume that those characters came from the same place that maybe some of the other characters came from. Was the ice show?
The Ice Capades, yeah.
Yeah, because they did have some licensing rights to do Disney shows, and maybe they didn't have the archive of characters to go through. That they might have just had stuff, and they're like, we need to pack the house.
Yeah.
I think that's why they had them. I don't think they're necessarily Disney, but I'm not sure. But the best part about this too, it's not just those dancing candles. It's this is when Mary Poppins was coming out, so these killer special effects of Poppins flies in.
Yeah.
But it's not Julie Andrews, but that's okay, right? But some cool special effects of her flying in. And what's funny is it's a pretty popular animated GIF these days, don't you think?
I haven't
seen
seen it used that much.
Yeah,
but
Poppins kind of just throws all this pixie dust in front of the castle. And
Okay.
if you know where it's from. Now you know it's from the 10th anniversary special. But they show her kind of fly in and do her bit. So I think that's kind of cool. And Walt has that really cool line here that from now on, there'll be no celebration at Disneyland without Mary Poppins.
yeah, I thought that was interesting. And
And I always try to hold the park to that.
yeah, it was definitely cool. I've always wanted to pitch a flying fireworks show, since we have such a cool flying rig that we fly Tinkerbell on above Sleeping Beauty Castle. I'm like, let's do Buzz Lightyear, let's do Mary Poppins, let's do Peter Pan. I would kill to have a themed fireworks show all about flying and take total advantage.
Well, they did the Dumbo. That was
yes,
pretty cool.
I love the
for
flying
Believe.
Dumbo.
What's funny about that is when they had Dumbo come up, I knew it'd be like this upbeat, when I see an elephant fly, kind of like, oh, it'd be really positive.
No.
And then I saw it, I'm like, holy crap, they're doing baby mine.
Yeah, and you're like, and let's cry now.
They trying to make everyone cry like that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of potential with that. The wires.
There were some cool like throwback costumes in this section. We got the 3 little pigs, which we don't see often. The dwarfs costumes. Oh my God, these are the scary, old school dwarfs costumes where they're massive heads.
Yeah. And they're just down low and they're wiggling their nose. It's just kind of just weird.
It's so funny because obviously back in the day, like these were acceptable costumes for the parks. And I think about that every once in a while where I'll be in the park and I'll be like, okay, which ones of these 20 years from now are people going to be like, oh my gosh, you had that and that didn't terrify you? I'm like, Abu is totally one of those.
Abu from Aladdin?
Have you seen that costume to Abu? It's like a full size. Yeah. That's a terrifying costume.
That would never freak me out. I don't know. I'd have to think about it, but yeah, some kind of stand out, and I think some of them get remodeled when I don't think they need to be. Like there's some characters that haven't been touched in decades, like or ever. Like Goofy's never been touched. Like, are you kidding me? There's been like Mickey's had like 5 facelifts, but can we at least give some love to Goofy?
Yeah.
But then you kind of worry like, how would they change it? It might not look right because we're so used to some of them.
I'm not a huge.
Stromboli. Have you seen that thing?
I have
seen Halloween,
Stromboli.
they dragged some of them out. You're just like, are you kidding me?
I loved seeing Gus from Cinderella in this little segment. I thought that was great. Yeah. But let's get to the cake because there is a giant birthday cake. No, they did not turn Sleeping Beauty Castle into a 10-year cake, but they did have a giant birthday cake, and they had this little ditty that was like 10 years of fantasy, 10 years of fun.
Well, did you notice the whole special has a score? Like it was treated like a whole, like almost like a movie. Like there's an orchestra recording music for this.
Sure. Yeah.
And then, but like what's great about those candles is they have the cake, they have the candles, and then they all of a sudden switch it out really fast, and there are these performers, so the candles have legs now. Mm-hmm. Probably a Walt idea. But then they start dancing, and then they're doing their thing. It just when I saw that, it just looks like a Kevin and Jody painting, or it just looks like something Shag would do. It's so stylized for the era. Mm-hmm. And then there's like that really cool special effect where they hop off the cake, and now the cake comes up and they walk around. You're like,
the pieces of cake, it's like cut into slices. Yeah. It was, listen, it's cheesy and hokey looking back, but at the same time,
so cheesy, but
I can totally picture somebody like pitching that and be like, that'll be fun. So I get it.
Well, here's the thing. Like you look at those kind of candle characters, I want to see if there's another huge anniversary parade. I need those candles in the parade. Like do these kind of throwbacks that who knows if anyone will recognize it, but I love it so much.
You know what? I get unnecessarily uncomfortable whenever the costume or characters don't have arms. And I like fear for the performer inside.
Like they're going to fall and eat it?
Yes. So like I can remember the days of like Universal when SpongeBob didn't have arms. He had like
Mike
these
Wazowski.
Little things that had, or Mike Wazowski, same deal. Yeah. Where there's like little, basically the performer's arms are inside the costume. So if they fall, they can't get up. And I just always think about that. So these candles with no arms and these pieces of cake. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be that candle falling. I mean, not only falling, but then like rolling because you're round.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, do I have the legs for it? Well, listen, that's up for debate. But yeah, let's move on from my legs and talk about. I love how they brought in the local high school bands once again to march down Main Street. I love that this has been a tradition for so long. Disneyland still brings in local school bands.
Magic Music Days, kind of like maybe like the roots of Magic Music Days. But what's cool about it is it's Anaheim. Yeah. And it's really neat to hear Walt talk about Anaheim. I feel like I've never heard him say that word. He's always talking about Disneyland. He doesn't really kind of talk about the city. And he had a funny joke in there, too, about how the kids love taking school off to come to this. So, like, they're just happy to be here because they're not at school. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
At that same time, though, for the local Anaheim bands, they show Mickey in this huge drum.
Yes.
Going down the street. I have a theory about this.
Yeah, because this drum has become very iconic. Mickey and the big drum.
They show it all the time. Yeah.
Yes. So let's hear your theory.
Thing.
Yep.
They're not going to have a bunch of these drums, right? This is old school. This is back in the day. I think that drum, they threw some Christmas lights on it in 1971, and I think that's the original drum and train from Electrical Parade. Because I used to drive that float in the Electrical Parade back in the day, so I'm very familiar with the sizing of it and how Mickey would be on it, and because I think they just had some poor Chip and Dale characters pulling it, right? They figured out how to let's have the train going to pull this drum now instead of having it be. Because all the batteries on it now, it got a lot heavier. I think that's the original unit that turned into Drum and Train for Electrical Parade.
It wouldn't surprise me at all if that were the case, and if not, at the very least, that's what inspired what we got in Electrical Parade. So it's pretty cool. It's classic.
The logo on it's sweet too. I want a T-shirt with that big white D and that classic castle. I'm like, that would be a really cool T-shirt.
Yeah, you know what they
Disney
had?
Merchandise, talking to you.
You know what they had during this that I miss these days, and I get it's not environmentally friendly, but the whole balloon release along Main Street USA, is there anything more?
Well, especially in the 80s, they did that, the biggest one of all time. You're just like cringing watching that. Like, how many animals died for that?
What was the big one in the 80s?
Oh, they did like a balloon fest.
Oh, did they?
Google it. It's insane. You're going to throw up. It's awful.
Here's the thing, though, with the balloon releases. Like, I mean, with all of the modern technologies we have, you're telling me we can't make biodegradable balloons made specifically? I get it. Like, they're not ones you would sell because they'll pop easily or whatever. But, like, for balloon release reasons, you're telling me we don't have biodegradable balloons?
You would think so.
But now I hear helium is an issue. So, I don't know.
You know what's fun, too, is like, then it kind of goes back to Walt, and he's with Julie again, and then he has like his badge, and he has it under his jacket.
Yeah,
right? And it's like
undercover.
It was total undercover, like #1, and I'm like, that is so cool. And it looked like the original name tags from the 50s that he just kind of always had on him or something, or maybe just for the scene. But I thought that was really neat.
Yeah,
if anyone's gonna have the #1 badge, like it's gonna be him. But I just thought that was a cool kind of like gag that he did.
Yeah, we did see a lot of videos of the old retro park at this point. We saw them breaking ground for the park, which is always fun to see.
And like he did the overlay, the counting. He's like 1, 2.
Yes,
3,
the Walt pacing. There's this classic clip of Walt pacing, which we'll talk about a little later on as well, they seem to show quite a bit. In fact, I'm pretty sure when you take the Magical Express from the Orlando airport to Walt Disney World, they
try to use it for Florida a lot.
They use a lot. They use the opening day speech at Disneyland for Florida a lot. And they do stuff like that all the time. But this classic Walt pacing, I don't know if this is the first time it was used, but I kind of got that impression. That
it seemed like it.
So,
you know what's neat too? Then it kind of goes to the Matterhorn, and they have the climbers on the Matterhorn.
That I love.
Talking about that, right?
Yes.
Because this part, they talked about the whole thing, how, now they're promoting the expansion in 59. So the Matterhorn, the monorail, and the subs.
Yep.
But what's cool about the Matterhorn is they showed that all the climbers on it. And then they say that, it's a daily event to have the Matterhorn climbers climb it. And if you look at it today, well, not today because it's closed, but like currently, it's they've pretty much cut the Matterhorn climbers. And it's one of those things that kind of goes back to Walt. Like, let's try to keep this going. It's not just an entertainment fluff that no one cares about. Like, no, this is part of the legacy now. Like, I think there should always be just a random climber on the Matterhorn.
Yeah, I would love to see them do that. I wonder if it's a safety concern at this point, but it would be a stunt performer, so it would be, not.
They've always done it.
Yeah,
they did it up until I think probably the 2000s, I would think. But you don't want a disaster, and they've been lucky; they never had anyone fall.
I've got one word for you: budget. What? Budget is the word. It's not a necessary thing, but it would be cool. I would love to see it. I've seen video of it so many times. I've never seen it in person, so I think it would be great.
I love it. Yeah. They actually have Mickey climb it sometimes, which is really
wow. Mm-hmm. Mickey on top of the Spaceship Earth is like one of my favorite things ever. I was like, I want that photo.
Wave.
They need to recreate like a photo, like, obviously not the real, but like they need to create just the top that you can stand on and blue screen.
Oh, that'd be cool.
They need to
I love that shot.
Yeah, it's great. So, they showed a lot of this old stuff, a lot of dignitaries throughout this. We had, the Tomorrowland flying saucers was a new thing. Of course, that did not last very long. We get the Columbia ship was new. The Indian Village was there. Swiss Family Treehouse with the Mills, Haley Mills and her family.
It's good documentation, because, you really look at the stuff that's gone. Well, then this is like maybe some of the only footage really that's been released on it. They also started talking about the Nature's Wonderland expansion.
Yes.
Cool.
The couple of expansions.
It didn't open with all that. Do you know?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Same thing with the Jungle Cruise. They talk about the Jungle Cruise expansion, and I think a lot of Disney fans know that is a day one attraction. But what they talk about in this little special was, when it opened, there were 2 elephants. Now there's a whole elephant bathing pool. And in this...
Lots of enhancements.
Yeah,
well, then they said that it wasn't, it wasn't funny. It was almost trying to be serious.
Oh,
and
totally.
Over the years, like, okay, let's have... Mark Davis draw up some gags for it, and so that's like the rhino, and then the people climbing up the tree
Yeah, and this is back in the day where they shot the hippos. No shooting in the air and scaring them away. They actually pointed the gun at the hippos and shot them. So
There's a funny picture of Walt doing that. Have you seen that picture?
I haven't, but
If you Google Jungle Cruise Walt gun,
that's
oh my gosh,
hilarious.
it's really funny.
So there's that, some just really great footage around the park, super nostalgia stuff. Seeing, the Skyway go through the Matterhorn
Right.
is always, that's
Right.
something I've never witnessed in person. And if
Oh.
I did, I
Bummer.
don't have any memory of it. It
Yeah,
was
that's my childhood for sure.
yeah. So
It's really cool because you went through it, and then you see especially like if you're a kid and you're scared of the Matterhorn, well, you're not going to get any less scared seeing that part of it, right?
yeah,
Like they're zipping by right there,
sure.
and it kind of just feels cooler the way it's painted inside, and you could hear the Yeti kind of yelling
Yeah.
in there. That's a really neat kind of like right through.
Was that like a controversial thing when they closed it up? Do you know? Like, were people upset about it? Because I think visually, obviously, it looks a heck of a lot better now, not having two giant holes.
Yeah, the wires are kind of nasty, but then we replaced those wires with the Tink wires. So there's still wires up there, but it's hard to theme something like that, right? Because you're going to see these towers and you're going to see these big cables. But I wouldn't say it was controversial. I think it was a bummer.
Yeah.
It was as similar but not as bad as the People Mover closing.
Sure.
Yeah, we really liked this ride. It was kind of cool just to chill and do nothing. But being in high school when that thing closed down, I'm not saying I did it, but I had a lot of hoodlum friends that would throw gumballs off the skyways. So I think
really?
there was just too many punks that would kind of just not really treat it with respect. So
Somebody always ruins it for everybody, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And then I think when the doors you could open up the doors by yourself if you wanted to. And I think someone did purposely, but he fell, they say, but he purposely fell into the tree at Alice in Wonderland. I think that was the last straw.
Oh, man. Alrighty, so we got all that great footage, and then we get a little behind the scenes of the Enchanted Tiki Room where...
Right.
We get Jose out in front, kind of like as
the Barker Bird.
The Barker Bird,
so cool.
Which I don't think I ever witnessed in person either.
Well, that was, from what I understand, no one really saw animatronics back then, and they had the Barker Bird out by the Adventureland entrance. And it was so mind-blowing at the time that it was a bottleneck. Everyone would stop and be staring at this thing like that was the show. And they had to take them away, I think, because let's just get people in the show. It was just too cool to have outside.
Yeah.
So then they switched it up. But I think at this point it'd be kind of cool to bring them back because I think we've all seen animatronic birds by now.
They kind of did out in the little terrace there. What's it called? The
new one, right?
Yeah.
Where Aladdin's Oasis was.
The Tropical Hideaway, right?
Right. I knew it was a lyric from the song.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do have Rosita out there now.
Yeah, they have Rosito out at the Tropical Hideaway with the Jungle Cruise going by. So, I mean, in a small kind of way, that's
a nod to it.
Yeah. So that was cool, and we got to see under the stage and everything. And it's always interesting to me how much Walt gave away of what he was doing. He knew it was a good marketing technique, but to me, I kind of wish it was all secret still,
Yeah. But it's, people are so curious. He's feeding it a little bit, but not too much, I think.
Yeah.
What I thought was kind of cool too about this is how at the very end of this, they kind of close with the park at nighttime. So they're kind of pushing that. But then they're next week on The Wonderful World of Color, and it's some Boston Tea Party episode.
Oh yeah, Johnny Tremaine,
yeah. This is just a crummy commercial, from A Christmas Story.
Yeah, they definitely did the whole The Wonderful World of Color. It was pretty random. Some weeks you'd tune in and it would be something about the parks, and then the next week it would have nothing to do with the parks. So it was definitely all over the place. So
a good mix.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I loved seeing the park at night for sure. They show the 4-person bicycle on Main Street, which I've never witnessed in person, although I love it.
I feel like I may have, but it didn't really resonate. But it's just cool. One of those things that just the fact that it's the Dapper Dans.
Yeah,
that's a tradition too. It goes way back there.
I wonder if it's still part of the audition. Can you ride a bicycle?
No, I don't think so.
And then
they just got to make sure you hit those high notes.
Yeah, we got this awesome Dixieland at Disneyland celebration on the rivers of America.
Let's talk about this.
It's like a parade on water. It's kind of awesome.
It is. When I was a kid, I had this, I think a book that was made, it was purple. It was made for Disneyland's 30th anniversary, I believe. And there's pictures of one of the floats. So when I saw this, it has a big crown and there's a Dixieland band on it and it's a raft. I just oh my God, that's the picture from that book I had when I was a kid, and I've never seen it moving. I never realized it was a whole parade.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
It was a pretty epic big show. Rivers of
Fireworks
America.
crazy.
Yeah. Rivers of America is a really good canvas for shows, and I'm sure you'll remember this. The whole Tiana, Princess and the Frog show that they did on the Mark Twain that like floated by in the Rivers of America was fantastic.
It was so ideal.
Oh,
well, what's neat too is there's one, I'm trying to think which one it is. It might have been this one, but one of them actually like they paraded out from New Orleans to the boat. And then
yes,
the boat came,
it was that. Yes.
Right? Yeah, then the boat came and parked right in front of Pirates. So like, can you think of a better venue? Like, and especially now with the big news in Tiana.
Yeah.
Let's hope they bring that back.
I would honestly love for that to be brought back. And listen, Princess and the Frog is the perfect movie for New Orleans Square, obviously.
It was made for it.
How Tiana's place hasn't taken over the French market or whatever yet is beyond me.
Well, not that I want to get rid of Hungry Bear because it's pretty much the only leftovers of Country Bears. But
it should be
that would
Tiana's
be a really
place.
good spot for Tiana. And say goodbye to Winnie the Pooh, please.
Yeah, so I keep saying bring back the Country Bear show and just have them throw a Mardi Gras celebration there. Boom.
Oh my gosh.
Done.
I love it.
So yeah, using the Rivers of America for a show I think is awesome. I think that's going to wrap it up for the 10th anniversary. Is there anything else you want to say about the 10th anniversary?
I just think it was fun to go back and watch it all, like to literally sit down and kind of just appreciate it. It's great, and I highly recommend anyone going back to watch it.
Yeah, and it is funny just to think about Disneyland being 10 years old. I mean, what a major accomplishment. And they even talk about it in it, like, I believe if I'm remembering correctly, maybe it was the later one, but about how people didn't really believe in Disneyland and didn't think it would be a success. And
well, it's kind of like maybe why he wanted to do this, to kind of like shut up the haters.
Yeah.
Like, we're celebrating 10 years. Sorry, we're the real deal.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. So let's move on to the Disneyland 25th anniversary. This aired on television on March 6th of 1980. And this
feels like a lot older, doesn't it?
Well, listen, the host of this is Danny Kaye, which immediately makes it feel older. This is a man who's like famous for the movie White Christmas and annoys the crap out of me to begin with. I will say
there's a lot to unpack with this whole special.
Well, it's interesting
mostly because of Danny Kaye.
It's interesting because of, yes, oh my God, talk about controversy. Episode 573 of Disney Coast to Coast, I did a whole episode about the Epcot Center opening celebration TV special.
It feels like it. It really does feel like that, doesn't it?
Well, it's the same host. It's Danny Kaye for that, and it was only 2 years later. So this Disneyland one came first since it was 1980. And yeah, it's interesting to me that they hired him for this and then was like, yeah, let's bring him back, because I'm like,
it's the same humor.
He's not appealing to me. I don't know. He doesn't do it.
He's not our generation. He's not for us. Do you know what I mean? Like,
totally.
I think there was a different audience that this was geared for, and I'm sure he has his fans.
Yeah.
But just because I actually saw the Epcot one first, and then I saw this. So I'm like, oh, this feels like Epcot, even though like this was the first one.
Yeah.
But what I love about this is it starts off with this super cheesy song.
Once upon a time in Anaheim.
Right? But for some reason it's so awful, but it kind of like grows on me. So then I kind of start to like it. But here's like a fun fact though. Do you know where that's being filmed? He's walking in a little field.
Yeah, so it's funny because it's trying to resemble what was there before Disneyland was there. So just these empty fields. But no, I don't know specifically. Was it somewhere out in the parking lot or something? Or?
No, that was actually right behind Casey Jr. in the little field that became Videopolis.
How do you know that?
It's just, I know it. Talking to people that worked at Disneyland for a long time, and then like I saw something on Twitter about it too, and I had a friend on Twitter that confirmed it. Like, yeah, because he worked there at the time. That was a field, and I believe, I could be wrong, but I think that's where they had a couple of Thumper's Easter egg hunts.
Wow, so I want to re-edit that now with the Videopolis music and have Danny Kaye singing, I'm going to the top, Videopolis.
Oh, so awesome. Yeah, I think, so it's kind of, and they filmed a lot of it in that back area. You know, a lot of it was filmed by the Small World. There's a big flat area.
Yeah.
A lot of painted pavement out there.
Yeah, and then, we do see that classic clip in this 25th anniversary special of Walt pacing once again that we saw in the 10th anniversary.
That's standard issue. I bet you each one of these anniversary shows has that. They have to.
Now, what was interesting to me was the Country Bear footage, because I never grew up with Country Bears in Disneyland.
Oh, I did.
And so, like, for me, I immediately think Magic Kingdom.
It still hurts.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of original songs. That one song is... It's so cheeseball, that song, and I love that you just sang it too. But
It's
like it, or
I'm sorry.
do you like it or do you not like it?
It's horrible, but it can't. But you can't get it out of your head.
Earworm.
It's so stupid. They took a lot of like quotes at the end of this special. They took, that quote that Walt has, "We're the young at heart." This.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was trying to.
And they like
paraphrase all that.
musicalized that. So
It's trying to be too sappy. Maybe that's part of it.
Here's the other thing about Danny Kaye that I don't get is he's not a good singer. So they
He just does
try.
his own thing. He's always riffing. Yeah.
He's
He
just
kind of talks to it.
He's kind of like a bumbling old man. Kind of. I mean, he kind of is. It's kind of like, what is he doing? Just go with it, sort of thing. And
Yeah, they kind of just let him do his thing.
yeah, so for a man who's like doesn't have a great singing voice, I'm like, why are they giving him all these songs? I mean, and a plethora of songs.
Well, he probably played maybe about 20 characters in this whole special.
Yes,
right?
problematic.
We got to talk
characters.
about some of them.
Well, yeah, how about the Indian that he played? And I'm not talking about a Native American. I'm talking about a person from India where they've darkened his skin and he did the accent.
He was in blackface, right?
Yeah.
Would you call it that?
I mean, it was darker skin for sure.
Yeah. Dark makeup on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw that and I'm just like, it's, you look at things with 20/20 eyes and you're just like, we can't do that now. But that was kind of just shocking. That was like really shocking. There was also some drag in this too.
Yeah, he played a grandmother at one point, which was interesting. And
the grandma and the grandpa that hate each other. Every joke was about how much they hated each other.
Well,
that was kind of fun.
The thing that I thought was weird was like the grandparents, they had been at Disneyland for 4.5 days, which I thought was interesting because to me, it kind of felt like this is at a time when Disneyland was a one-day visit sort of thing. And I kind of felt like they were pushing the idea of, no, this is a resort stay here for a long time. But
they were trying to change the perception that it's just one park. Like, yeah, we're going to stay here 4 days. Why aren't you staying here 4 days? Yeah.
But the weird thing was the kid wanted to go home. And of course, by the end of it,
little brat.
his mind changes by the end of it. But for a good amount of time, like you've got this kid going, I just want to go home. And it's like, I
dislike that kid's hair more than I dislike Danny Kaye.
Oh man. But yes, Danny Kaye's characters were insane. We got a performance by the Osmonds, which it's so
Don't you think that was cool though? How they showed them as kids?
Yeah, their history with the park is undeniable, and it was just interesting to me to think back even just several weeks ago where we had Donny Osmond singing "I'll Make a Man Out of You" on the Disney Sing-Along on ABC.
Exactly.
Like, wow, the history is great.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool, and I did think Danny Kaye said something sweet here because they asked about, or someone said something about, was Donnie there or was Marie? And they said something really sweet about Marie not being born yet. I forget what it was, but it was really, I thought that was sweet.
It was Donnie was just a young little lad, and Marie was just a wish that hadn't been fulfilled, or something like that.
Yeah, that was. I thought that was. I kind of like, maybe it's because I'm a dad. I was kind of like, oh, that's.
Listen, I'm not a dad, and it even I was like, that's a really sweet way of putting it. Like that thought crossed my mind. So okay, 1 point for Danny Kaye. One point.
Yes. The Osmonds though, the way they kind of go to that modern, like I don't know any like Donny Osmond songs.
Yeah.
Or like Osmond songs. It seems very 70s. It seems very something that the Simpsons would make fun of. You know what I mean? It's just like, and they're almost too wholesome. And I'm glad one of them made a joke about their teeth. Like, cause they all, like, I just picture them drawn as characters and it's all about their teeth. And they even made a joke about how big their teeth are. And I'm like, okay, I like them. I'm starting to like them. They can poke fun at themselves.
So what you're saying is you want a Simpsons Osmond spoof in Disneyland Park now?
Yes.
I'm
surprised it hasn't happened yet. Well, actually, now that Disney owns The Simpsons, maybe it'll happen. But, we also, they show one of Danny Kaye's bits was with Wally Bogue in the Golden Horseshoe.
The longest consecutive playing show in history.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. And then there was one song, too. It's cool to see Wally Bogue because, we're used to seeing, like, the old black and white footage of him doing his bits. But to see him older, obviously, because this is 1980 now, I would say the show probably ran another 10 years after that before they actually canceled it and did other like kind of smaller stuff. But I like that. But then Danny Kaye also had a song that was on the dock of the Columbia.
Don't Be the Leaf, that weird one. It was so interesting because he was trying to make a point with it, and he was talking about Walt, and he was like, and Walt always said this place would never be finished and all that sort of thing. And then he transitioned into this song that like, as if he was trying to connect the two, and I'm like, I don't see how these two relate.
No, you're right, and it's kind of feels icky. But what's weird about it though is I like the song. Towards the end of the song, I'm like, oh, I kind of like this. And
I'll take the Once Upon a Time in Anaheim before I'll take this one. This one I did not like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, what's nice is there's a reprise of Once Upon a Time in Anaheim at the very end. They bookended it with it.
Once Upon a Time in Anaheim.
He just built it out. But you know what? I will say that I think that out of all the Disneyland anniversary specials, this next part is probably the best thing out of all of them.
Is it Michael Jackson?
Hell yeah. Okay, first of all, it's probably like the best version of When You Wish Upon a Star.
Okay, first of all, he's in the moat. Can we just talk about that? In front of Sleeping Beauty Castle.
That rock that he's standing on is still there.
It's
I'm
crazy.
such a dork that when I go there, I look at that rock, I'm like, that's where Michael Jackson's saying When You Wish Upon a Star. It's just so cool.
Yeah.
But then you kind of think about it, you're like, why are they promoting The Wiz? Right?
Yeah, so
it is around the same time.
It was so The Wiz. I actually looked this up because I was a little confused. The Wiz was 1978. The special was 1980. He starts with When You Wish Upon a Star, then transitions into Follow the Yellow
really
Brick.
Good. But don't you love that intro with Follow the Yellow Brick Road? That intro, like the way he does it and the way Mickey's walking with him, like nodding his head.
To be honest, I just couldn't. I was a little confused as to why he was singing Follow the Yellow Brick Road, especially since I was like, oh, okay, that kind of is like. Part of me was like, oh my gosh, did he get the Wiz after this? And then they start with Ease On Down the Road. I'm like, okay, obviously the Wiz is already a thing. And it was a little weird seeing Goofy and Pluto and the 7 dwarfs all like doing choreographed dance to Ease On Down the Road. Interesting.
I think I know why. Because if you look back in the 60s, I think Walt was trying to get his hands on the Wizard of Oz. Or maybe even in the 50s.
Yes.
He did something with the Mickey Mouse Club and Wizard of Oz, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then there was something more in the 60s where he tried it again with a different Wizard of Oz thing. There's something in color.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I've seen these clips and they're quite terrifying.
Yeah, but it just seems like they're always trying to get their heads around it. And I think this was kind of a hint because I have a feeling that Return to Oz was in production at this time.
Because that was an 80s
there's a
movie.
Disney.
Yeah.
I think it's Return to Oz. They're getting to kind of make that happen. And, they tried it again with Oz the Great and Powerful, like 10 years ago or so, 15 years ago. They're really trying to get a Wizard of Oz thing going so they could do something at Disneyland. In fact, before, Galaxy's Edge, they were really looking to do a Wizard of Oz area for that whole area. So the Hunchback venue area and then back behind the berm, they wanted that to be Oz. And if you think about it, it's perfect. So you have Frontierland transitioning to Kansas on that side behind Thunder Mountain, and you have Fantasyland transitioning to Oz. So you have this really cool mix that seems very appropriate for Disneyland, but that movie wasn't a hit, so they didn't go that route, right? And I really hope that we get a chance to look back at some of the plans for that. Like, yes, Galaxy's Edge is way better, but I think it was really interesting to see what they were thinking of for that area.
Yeah, it would. I mean, even in one of the Wizard of Oz is interesting. Let's face it, the most successful thing that Disney's ever done with the Wizard of Oz, I would say, is the Great Movie Ride, and then they destroyed that. But I think it was one of the Universal parks overseas did a whole Wicked little land, and so Wizard of Oz is okay, and it was a bit of a land with like an abridged version of the show, right?
Right. I had a friend that was in it, and they had like a Kansas area, and then they had like the Emerald City area, and it looked like It's a Small World, like very Mary Blairish. So then they did a condensed Wicked show. Interesting. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, it's to me, knowing that, I wasn't kind of just scratching my head like, why is Michael Jackson singing this at Disneyland? Like there was no disconnect because I know that there's some history there. But if you don't know that, you'd be like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, but I will say the 7 dwarfs and other Disney characters choreographed to Ease On Down the Road is something to see.
You know what's neat too is when he's on that, what's the name of it? But it's like that push cart on the train tracks.
Oh, yes.
I think that's the same one that's in front of the train station today.
Oh, I would bet money. Yeah. Why wouldn't it be, right?
How cool is that? Yeah. Like they're not going to have another one. So if you're in the Michael Jackson, you're like, yep, that's what he wrote. And then he sang here. And I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, this was long before Captain EO, so he'd always been
and maybe it is. It's probably too soon before Captain EO to where they didn't know that would happen. But obviously, Michael Jackson loved Disneyland. Yeah, and when they kind of start talking about what it means and about kids liking it and never growing up, they're like, well, that's Michael Jackson's whole bio. So yeah, I get why he's there. Yeah, I get why he wanted to be there. What did you think about the whole medley
The medley's weird, but before we get to that, I want to mention something. Danny Kaye at one point played a British character, and he was having a conversation with the camera about wanting to audition to be Mickey and the Seven Dwarfs and stuff.
That's weird.
And they were like, "You're not tall enough. You're too tall." And I was like, "Holy moly! Are they like referencing the fact that Mickey is a costume?" Like that was bizarre to me. These are the hidden gems that you find in these specials. Like, yes, we're weird for like loving and going back and watching these, but like as a Disney fan, you learn so much history, not only of like what used to be in the park, but also the way that the company used to reference or hold their standards.
I think that was a mistake. I think they just let
that was a long segment though.
Yeah. Well, it's like one of Danny Kaye's, racial stereotypes. Or ethnic, because they're doing like, there's an Italian guy, there's the English guy.
Which doesn't even make sense, unless they're trying to say people from all over the world come to visit Disneyland. Maybe that's their angle. But otherwise, I'm like, this isn't World Showcase. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's true. But it was interesting, too, for the whole medley thing. But I think it was before that. That's when the kid was saying he wanted to go home. Right?
Yeah.
And they have like the electrical parade floats in the back.
No, that was the end. So this medley's before it, where they do like the whole supercalifragilisticexpialidocious medley.
So it's like a mix between. I was trying to figure out, okay, who are the cast members, who are just random guests, who are the celebrities.
There were a lot of celebrities that I definitely didn't recognize, but we had Annette Funicello there. We had Buddy Ebsen from Davy Crockett.
Really old, didn't he? He looked really old for that part. Yeah. But they had Ted Lang from Love Boat. They had all the Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh, so you know more than me.
They had Boss Hogg and Frontierland. I'm like, so there's some. I was raised on Dukes of Hazzard, unfortunately. But yeah, Fess Parker was so cool to see. The Dukes of Hazzard. Annette probably stood out the most.
Was Fess Parker there? I saw Buddy Ebsen. I don't remember Fess Parker.
Oh, you know what? It was just him. I was confusing the two. You're right.
I think it was Buddy Ebsen.
The one by Thunder Mountain, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, did you catch? They did show a lot of cast members doing, as part of it. Did you catch the two guys kissing?
No.
They're two custodian male guys that like one smooches the other on the cheek, and I'm like, look at that.
I'm going back and finding it.
Like 1980 Disneyland. I don't think I'm making this up. I'm pretty sure that happened. I was like, good for them. Rock and roll.
That's a good representation of working at Disneyland. A lot of love going on.
A lot of love.
That is accurate.
But yeah, it was a weird medley, and it was a long medley. But it was, it was supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Yeah, like it's funny because they didn't have the catalog of songs to go on. So the ones they were going on,
it's true.
They did all the old school ones, but I thought it was fun, and I think they were kind of hoping that people would mess up. They were trying to find humor in that, like they couldn't say bibbidi bobbidi boo or something like that. But
yeah,
I thought it was cute.
Yeah,
but when it goes to like the weirdest
nightmare.
Character, yes.
Yeah.
The Witch of Disneyland?
So yeah, we get Danny Kaye dressed as a witch, and he has an F ticket to give to the kid, because 1980 was still of the day of ticket books, which a lot of people might find hard to believe. Yeah. It wasn't until 1982.
I laughed when I saw that he had an F ticket, because that's what I called Rise of the Resistance.
Yes.
Like, this is an F ticket.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, don't worry. Save that ticket for later, kid.
Exactly. So the passports came in 1982, but we got this random witch character. What is it with random witches in these specials? I don't know. We got it in the 10th anniversary. Now we got it in the 25th. And it became a whole dance number. Danny Kaye transforms into Captain Hook. We've got the Main Street Electrical Parade floats and a giant dance number all happening in front of It's a Small World.
What's cool about this is you get to see electrical parade floats that don't exist anymore. And as an electrical parade connoisseur, I was just really excited because they had the Monstro the Whale float.
Yes. Yep.
Which is pretty cool because that thing used to be Pinocchio float, and then it evolved into Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Or maybe vice versa. I don't know. But so that float existed. But then there's another Small World float that was back there that has been like destroyed since then. So I just thought that was cool to see the old electrical parade floats.
Yeah, for sure. And, at that point, Electrical Parade had been around for just a few years at that point. And they were just like kind of background set pieces. They weren't driving by or anything, which I thought was cool.
Which we'll have to touch on when we get to the 30th, because they did that same gimmick.
Oh, okay. I haven't watched
with the Pointer
it yet,
Sisters.
So, okay. Yeah. All right. We'll get to the 30th.
So that's a good idea that's used again.
So they had that. It ended with a wide shot of like a bunch of cast members in front of It's a Small World, which I thought was really nice. In fact, this is when Danny, I believe, made a comment about the cast members specifically. And
I thought that was sweet.
Yeah, how, important they are, and they're the ones that keep the magic alive and everything. So, listen, it's an interesting special. Both of these specials we've discussed, the 10th anniversary and the 25th anniversary, can easily be found on YouTube if you've never seen them. If you still want to watch them after our little discussion about them, as weird as they are, they're worth watching if you're a Disney fan.
I think so too. Before we sign off, though, going back to the cast members, and when he was kind of really speaking highly of them, he described them in a way that I've never heard before, which I really liked, is when he said they manufacture happiness. Yeah. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
I just loved hearing that. But then they end with the reprise of Once Upon a Time in Anaheim.
Once Upon a Time in Anaheim. It's stuck in my head, man. It'll never go away. And I hope by the end of this podcast, it's stuck in everybody listening head as well.
And you know what's cool too is during the credits, this was kind of funny too. I was looking at the credits to see if I recognize any names, because on the 30th anniversary, I recognize a lot of those names, because a lot of them kind of continued with parades and entertainment at Disneyland. It's like they're producers and stuff. So I didn't recognize anyone from 1980, but that's one thing I recognize from 85. So I think that's when a lot of
new ownership at that point, right? Eisner would have come by 85.
And they kind of maybe beefed up entertainment more. But the thing that was really cool about the credits is the scene that's behind the credits is the hub and Main Street with no Walt statue.
No Walt statue, which is still so weird to me. Yeah. That I can't even believe. That came in the early 90s, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to believe that was not there.
Yeah, for sure. And it was very, very cool. You did touch upon the fact, you mentioned the 30th anniversary. And what's the other one that we watched?
35th.
The 35th. So yes, tune in next week. We're going to get some trivia in a second, but tune in next week so that we can talk about those. I know those are right up your alley, because that's like...
I was raised on it.
The time period you love. And
I can quote each one. I don't have to watch it. I'll recite the whole damn thing. I'm not brainwashed.
So we will discuss those on the next episode of Disney Coast to Coast. So make sure you tune in for that. But for now, let's get to some trivia.
Do you know the answer? Get your brain gears churning and play along. It's trivia time.
Alrighty, do you want to hit me with a trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
Hit me.
Okay, so in the 10th anniversary, we're talking about kind of the behind the scenes of all these things that were coming to Disneyland. The 4 attractions that they showed was It's a Small World, the Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, and the Museum of the Weird, which was kind of a Haunted Mansion extension. But of those 4, which ones did Walt Disney live to see open? Obviously, it's a fairly simple question, but I'm asking because I think our listeners would find it interesting. But which one of those?
Well, I'm going to work backwards. Pirates opened Pirates opened after he passed.
Correct.
I know he saw the outside of the Haunted Mansion.
That is true, but he did not see it open.
He did not see it open. Museum of the Weird never happened. And what was the 4th one you said?
It's a Small World.
Oh, he saw that. He helped pour the water into that.
Exactly. So It's a Small World. It's an easy trivia question, but I thought folks listening might find that interesting, because it's crazy to think. I mean, they were far along in the creation process when we saw them talking about these things as far as story and stuff in the special. So it's crazy to think like it was not that much further in the future. Yet Walt never got to see those classic attractions. Like, let's face it.
He died young if you think about it. That really sucks.
Oh, he certainly did. I mean, he was 65 years old. Even in that day and age, it was pretty young. So it's crazy to think. So, but It's a Small World. Obviously he saw it happen at the World's Fair, but he did get to see that open at Disneyland. And
right. He looks pretty old in that video too.
Yeah. So that's cool. The answer. It's Small World. What's your trivia question for me?
Speaking of electrical parade.
Yes.
And, units come and go. Parade floats come and go. Mm-hmm. And there was a unit for Return to Oz. Did you know that?
I feel like I've heard this before. I cannot visualize it, but I feel like I had heard that they threw that in there.
There's only a couple pictures online about it. But what's neat is if on most versions of the soundtrack for Electrical Parade, if you listen to it, it still has the Return to Oz theme in it, which is
interesting.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Kind of sounds a bit like really harpsichordy and kind of fast. And like once you hear it, you're like, what is this? And you're like, oh, it's Return to Oz.
Interesting.
So here's my question. Do you know why they removed that unit?
Well, I mean, my immediate thought would be that it just became a forgotten, outdated property, but I have a feeling that there's more of a story to it.
Well, I remember being a kid, going to school nearby. We lived close to Disneyland, and I saw all this black smoke coming from near Disneyland.
Oh no!
Yeah, and I remember the newspaper, because there wasn't like, oh, go on Twitter, find out what it is, and the news didn't cover it. But the next day in the newspaper, there was an article that the Return to Oz float, which was all mirrors and glass, caught fire because it was stored outside.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know honestly if they just stopped it already or if Electrical Parade was even running, but it definitely didn't come back because it burnt down.
That's
the sun
crazy.
used it as a magnifying glass and it got torched.
Oh,
crazy, right?
Well, there's some fun history.
Random facts.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for coming on to talk about this. As I mentioned, you'll be back next week to talk about some more anniversaries as we count down to Disneyland's 65th anniversary. But why don't you let folks know where they can find you?
Well, I'm usually living on Twitter at CartarSauce, CARTAR sauce. And still doing Instagram too, but you could check my website out at samcarterart.com. I do a lot of theme park design and a lot of industry stuff in the experience design field. So check me out.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sam. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Now, folks, if you haven't listened to this past Wednesday's episode, you'll definitely want to check it out, as I spoke with Disney author and documentarian Jeff Curdy, and on next week's episode, Sam and me will be back with 2 more Disneyland anniversary specials to talk about as we continue to celebrate Disneyland's 65th anniversary. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any of the magic is by subscribing to Disney Coast to Coast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you search, don't forget, it's Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast. And if you haven't done so yet, head on over to patreon.com/DisneyCTC to support the show and gain rewards. That's patreon.com/DIZNEYCTC. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.